From the very first day that we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden, I believe we're going to have the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Before I even arrive in the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I know them both very well.
This is my video update on this Sunday morning, May the 12th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with what is happening in the Kharkov region. Pretty quiet this morning. Everyone was out partying on Saturday night, so it's going to be a pretty relaxed walk. Покупаєте всі білети на всі екскурсії здесь. Покупаєте всі білети. Buy all your tickets here for all of the excursions. It also has the English translation up above, but that's what that sign was saying. All right, давай, пойдем гулять. Let's talk about some news, and let's talk about what is happening in Kharkov. Because the Russian military, in one day, 2 days max, the Russian military was able to capture 110 square kilometers of territory in the Kharkov region and 12 villages. And now the fighting in the Kharkov region is focused on Volchansk. So in one day, the Russian military accomplished more than 3, 4, 5 months of the great Ukraine super duper summer, spring, winter, fall counter offensive that offended me and offended you and offended everybody. So that is what is happening in the Kharkov region. Now, at a minimum, the Russian military is creating a buffer zone. At a maximum, who knows? Who knows what could happen in the Kharkov region? But no doubt about it, the Russian military, they are carving out a buffer zone in order to minimize the artillery that hits Belgorod. And of course, the Russian military, they are also stretching the Ukraine military resources across the front line, and Ukraine's resources are already stretched very thin. So Russia has opened up another front, which is something that the Ukraine military is not prepared for. They don't have the military resources to deal with another front. I actually read that Ukraine is now moving resources from the Kherson direction, from the Kherson front to the Kharkov direction. So that's part of the plan, it seems, with the Kharkov advance. But what can Ukraine do? Even if Russia is just creating a buffer zone and they don't want to advance any further towards Kharkov, if you're Ukraine, you have to move resources to the Kharkov front, because what if Russia continues to advance? You don't know. It's the equivalent of playing defense, say in a basketball game, and playing defense against a team that can score from anywhere on the court. They can score from the perimeter. They have big men to score in the inside. They can score from the post, from the sides. They have a deep bench. They have one star player who can pretty much score from anywhere. How do you defend against that? You have to try to cover the entire court. And it's hard to defend against a team that can score from anywhere. Do you go man to man? Do you play a zone? A box and one? What do you do? So even if this is just about creating a buffer zone, even if this is a pinning operation, a distraction, Ukraine is going to have to dedicate resources to Kharkov. So let's see here. There are a lot of surrenders actually as well. The Ukraine military is surrendering in the Kharkov region. A lot of the villages, the Ukraine military just kind of abandoned. They just ran away. They left. And the Russians moved in without any fight at all. And then you had a lot of Ukraine soldiers surrendering. We got video and images of the Ukraine forces that surrendered to the Russian military. And so I was watching Alexander's video yesterday, and he made an excellent point about what's happening in the Kharkov direction, where basically Alexander said, and I haven't heard any analysts say this so far, but Alexander said that a lot of this is Zelensky's fault. Actually, this is all Zelensky and Budanov's fault, because it was Zelensky and Budanov, and no doubt they were getting orders from NATO and from the UK and the US command, but they were the ones that over the past 2 years decided to attack Belgorod. They thought it was a good idea to attack civilians in Belgorod. And they kept on doing it over 2 years. And the Russian government, the Russian military, they warned Ukraine, they warned the collective West, stop hitting civilian targets in Belgorod. And Ukraine continued to hit Belgorod. And the Russians warned the Ukraine government, stop hitting Belgorod. And Ukraine continued to hit civilian targets in Belgorod. And the Ukraine government thought it would be a clever idea to send, what did they call them? Anti-Putin Russian forces, whatever they decided to label them, to try and enter Belgorod and take over villages in these ridiculous operations that they put together, propaganda PR operations that they decided to put together. And the Russian government warned the Ukraine military and the collective West, stop this. And this was going on for 2 years. And the Russians waited, and they were patient, and they built up their forces, and they waited for the right time. And now they're striking. And Ukraine is in a panic. The Biden White House is in a panic. The collective West is in a panic. Citizens in Kharkov, they don't know what to do. Do they stay in Kharkov? Do they leave the city of Kharkov? Are the Russians going to advance into the city? Are the Russians going to build, are they going to create a buffer zone? What's going to happen now? Everyone is wondering, what are the Russians up to? But you know, the Russians warned Zelensky, and they warned Budanov, and they warned the collective West, stop going after Belgorod. But they kept on doing it. So all of this is the Ukraine government's fault. It's the Zelensky's regime's fault. it's the US and the UK and NATO's fault because they kept on poking the bear. Russia's patient, man. They are patient. And they give a lot of warnings. For 2 years, they've been giving warnings. And the collective West didn't listen. And as Lavrov said many times, the more you attack us, the further we're going to have to push you back. And now they're making good on those promises. So an excellent analysis from Alexander there, talking about how Zelensky and Budanov ultimately are to blame for the catastrophe that is unfolding in the Kharkov region. Ukraine would have been better off just leaving Belgorod alone. It served no military strategic purpose to hit civilian targets in Belgorod. What was the purpose of it all? Except for PR and propaganda. And now you're having to pull resources from other areas of the front line where you need those resources that you don't have, resources that are in short supply, and you're having to pull those resources and now send them to Kharkov because you don't know what the hell Russia's going to do. Anyway, so the Zelensky regime, they don't know how to deal with this Russian advance. So what did they do yesterday? They sent artillery into Belgorod, and they hit civilian targets, I believe with HIMARS, because they don't know how to handle the Russian military advance, and they can't take on the Russian military. They can't stop the Russian military from advancing. So what do? They sent HIMARS into civilian areas, which will force the Russians to do what? To push Ukraine even further back. Let's see here. Let's read a Twitter X post from Armchair Warlord. There's an entire Russian field army coiled up in Belgorod and Kursk, and the Ukrainians are venting their rage on Russian civilians for lack of targets. Meanwhile, the Russians are gutting the AFU in Kharkov. Beyond being pathetic, it's a telling show of relative capability. And he posted this in response to the news that a civilian lost his life as a result of the attack of the Ukrainian forces on Belgorod, where Ukraine was using British weapons for terror attacks, according to Moscow. In the Belgorod region, Ukrainian forces are actively using weapons supplied by Britain to carry out terrorist attacks against Russian regions. Foreign Ministry official Sergei Belyaev has said. So yeah, they hit civilian targets in Belgorod because, as Armchair Warlord points out, they don't know what else to do. They can't take on the Russian military, so they strike out in anger at civilian targets. So, we also had an attack yesterday in the Donetsk region, where the Ukraine military, they hit a cafe where there was a motor rally right next to the cafe that was about to take place in order to celebrate the 10 years of the creation of the Donetsk People's Republic. Ukraine shells cafe in Russia's Donetsk. 3 people were killed in the attack on the capital of the Donetsk People's Republic. The shells landed near the starting point of a motor rally dedicated to the anniversary. Dozens of cars decorated with Russian flags were gathered at a large parking lot for the event. So the Russian military, they're going to continue to push back Ukraine from the Donbass area, push them further and further west. As Lavrov said many times, the more the Ukraine military attacks Russian civilian areas, the more Russia's going to push back in the other direction. So the Ukraine government yesterday, or more specifically the Defense Ministry spokesman, Dmitry Lazutkin, said that Ukrainian citizens should be prepared for full mobilization. Globally speaking, starting on May 18th, when the mobilization law comes into force, first of all, the approach of this war will change. Lazutkin told Espresso TV on Saturday, because the situation when some people are fighting at the front lines while others are living their quiet lives is obviously coming to an end. Life in Kiev is strikingly different from the situation in the east of the country, which is abnormal, according to the official. It would be normal if our enemy was weak, but with such an enemy, the whole country and the whole society needs to mobilize, Lazutkin added. Full mobilization. That's what's coming. So Business Insider, they put out an article on the arrival of the F16s. That's right, the F16s. And Business Insider, speaking to an expert on the subject, is reporting that the F-16s will help Ukraine capture Crimea. That's right. This is according to Business Insider. So I'm going to read you a bit of this article from Business Insider, because it's important to read Business Insider and publications like Business Insider, because that's where you get an understanding as to how stupid people think, right? So you got to read Business Insider, because that's where you understand how crazy analysis is developed, right? Where delusion comes from. Business Insider. So the title of their article is U.S. F-16s could play a vital role in isolating Crimea and humiliating Putin, says defense analyst. U.S. F-16s will have a big impact in helping Ukraine reclaim Crimea, an analyst told BI. The first F-16s are expected to be in Ukraine within weeks, according to reports on Friday, and Crimea holds great symbolic significance. Retaking it would be a major blow to Putin. You see how they think? Retaking it would be a major blow to Putin. Oh boy. Let's see what this expert, this analyst is saying. The delivery of US-made F-16s could play a crucial role in Ukraine's attempt to take back occupied Crimea, a defense expert told Business Insider. Frederick Martins, a strategic analyst at the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, told BI that by striking Russian ground-based air defense systems, Ukraine is preparing the ground for the future airstrikes once F-16 fighters arrive. The first F-16s are expected to be in Ukraine within weeks, according to reports on Friday. Denmark previously said it would begin transferring its aircraft in the summer. Norway and Belgium have also pledged F-16s to Ukraine. Denmark, the US, the UK, France, and Romania are helping train Ukrainian pilots. I don't think these are going to be Ukrainian pilots. Come on now. We know these are not going to be Ukrainian pilots. Anyway, let's continue. We should be careful not to overestimate the impact of the limited number of F-16 fighters, Martins said, adding that the land front is vast and there are a lot of, wow, get this line, and there are a lot of Russians to kill. That's what this guy says. The land front is vast and there are a lot of Russians to kill. But Crimea was vulnerable, especially when it comes to attacks from F-16 fighters, he said. The Russians have relatively limited maneuver space on the peninsula. Resupply is dependent on the Kerch Bridge. And here Putin has a lot to lose, both politically and militarily, he said. If a limited number of fighters can have a real impact, it is here. And above the Black Sea, that becomes fully accessible once the Grad on the Crimea are dealt with. Bro, Mr. Martins of The Hague, the Hague Center, the Hague Center for Strategic Studies. Oh, these think tanks. Oh boy, the Hague Center for Strategic Studies. Mr. Martins, did you not read the independent article that came out a week ago, which showed satellite images that show that the Russians are moving military supplies by rail and they're not using the Kerch Bridge? Did you not see those satellite images, Mr. Martins from the Hague Center of Strategic Studies? I guess he didn't see those satellite images. This guy still believes that the Russian military is moving supplies over the Kerch Bridge. Man. Yeah, the F-16s, they're going to capture Crimea, right? Those F-16s, the wonder weapon that is the F-16. And once Ukraine captures Crimea, well, they've got the whole land corridor that they can move through, right? All the way to Rostov, and then who knows? Maybe Voronezh, maybe all the way to the Far East. Who knows? Who knows how far they could go once they capture Crimea with those F-16s piloted by Ukrainians. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Ah, boy, if you don't laugh, you cry. If you don't laugh, you kind of feel sorry for these guys because their analysis is so piss poor, so delusional. It's just bad. It's just bad, misinformed analysis. Oh, boy. Anyway, let's get to the main event for today's video, which is Politico's exit interview of Victoria Nuland. That's right. Politico put out an article interviewing Victoria Nuland with the title, "She was at the top of the State Department. Now she's ready to talk." As Victoria Nuland steps down, she gets real about a world on fire. She was just a small town girl with a dream to destroy the Russian Federation, a dream to make it to the top of the US State Department. Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. I read this title and I think about my Don't Stop Believin' journey reference for Victoria Nuland. She was at the top of the State Department. She was just a small town girl with a big dream. Politico. Anyway, let's get to Politico's exit interview of Victoria Nuland. Let's see what Victoria Nuland has to say. Victoria Nuland has long been known as a relentless, even pugnacious U.S. diplomat with a strong belief in American power. The approach sometimes got her in trouble, but it rarely held her back. Nuland recently left the State Department after serving at its highest levels, first as the Biden administration's Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs and for several months acting Deputy Secretary of State. She previously was a career diplomat who held an array of roles under presidents, both Republican and Democratic. Her first posting more than 3 decades ago was as a consular officer in China. So Victoria Nuland, the representation of the deep state uniparty, Republican and Democrat, serving in the government, in the State Department for 3 decades, whether it's the Republicans in power or whether it's the Democrats in power. This is the representation. She is the pinnacle representation of the deep state uniparty. Let's get to the first question. I'm not going to read the whole article because, well, let me just summarize the full article, the full exit interview. I'll just summarize it for you, and I'll read the first question, and I'll read the last question that Politico throws at Nuland. But let me summarize everything in between. Basically, this article is Nuland saying Russia's bad, China's bad, Trump is bad, and student protesters at Columbia University are bad. That's the exit interview. But let me read you the first question, and there's a whole lot of projection in this article. Basically, everything that the neocons do to the world, she projects it onto mostly Russia, but China, Russia, etc. So there's a lot of projection in this interview. But the first question that Politico throws at Nuland is, how's life on the outside? Like she was in prison or something. How's life on the outside? Hey, Victoria Nuland, how's life on the outside? Life is good on the outside. It was tough on the inside, really tough. Anyway, how's life on the outside? That's the first question they ask her. Life is wonderful. I'm doing a lot of projects that I had put off, seeing a lot of people that I love, and I'm staying involved in ways that are meaningful. I'm speaking on foreign policy issues I care about, whether it is Ukraine or ensuring that the United States leads strongly in the world. I'm getting a chance to prepare for my classes in the fall and work with the next generation of foreign policy leaders. I'll be at Columbia School of International and Public Affairs. Oh boy, those poor students at Columbia, those poor students at Columbia University. God help them. Oh boy, I wonder what those students are talking about with their classes in the fall. under Professor Nuland. Hey Tony, what classes are you taking this fall? Oh man, I've got cookies and color revolutions with Professor Nuland. How about you, Jim? What classes are you taking this fall? Well, I'm signed up for dealing with Trump derangement syndrome with Professor Hillary Clinton. I've also got dealing with Putin derangement syndrome with Professor Nuland. That's right. She will be teaching the leaders of tomorrow, everybody, at Columbia University. My God. Oh, boy. So that's the first question that they asked Nuland. Let's get to the last question. Here we go. From Politico. Do you ever plan to go back into government? That's the final question. Do you ever plan to go back into government? And Nuland's answer is, I love what I did for 35 years. I've always loved it, and I continue to love it. So in the right circumstances, of course. Oh boy. Yeah, it's not over. We have not seen the last of Nuland in government. Basically, what she's saying is if Biden is reelected and she's offered a top position in the US State Department, a very, very good, powerful top position in the US State Department, and why wouldn't she be offered such a position? Then she would absolutely go back to government. Yep, that's the final question that they asked Nuland, and that was her response. If the administration and the position is right, of course I'll return to government. So that's the article from Politico, the exit interview of Nuland. So let's do this. Let's go to the church that they're still building. I was here last year, and they still haven't finished this church. And then we'll do a walk around. We'll go around there, and we'll start making our way back to the main square. One year, and they haven't really made any headway on this church. So Moscow, Russia, they have said that Switzerland is not neutral anymore. Switzerland has lost its neutrality. And Switzerland, they took issue with that claim from Russia. Switzerland said, no, we're still neutral. What are you talking about? We are absolutely still neutral. Switzerland rejects Russian claim it's no longer neutral. Moscow has called an upcoming Ukraine conference pointless, saying Bern is openly hostile and can't serve as a mediator. Switzerland's neutrality remains unchanged. The country's foreign ministry has insisted ahead of the peace conference on the Ukraine conflict next month. Russia has accused Bern of effectively siding with the West and Kiev in the current confrontation, making it an unfit mediator. According to the Swiss government, the Peace in Ukraine summit aims to pave the way towards a just and lasting peace in the Eastern European country. Bern has invited more than 160 delegations from around the world, including members of the G7, G20, BRICS, and EU. However, Switzerland has not extended an invitation to Russia. So Switzerland is saying we are absolutely neutral. We're even hosting a peace summit. That's how neutral we are, Russia. A peace summit where you're not invited. That shows how neutral we are. We're hosting a peace summit to try and find a solution to the conflict in Ukraine, but you're not invited. Once the peace summit is over, then we'll call you into the room and we'll give you the terms, and we want you to agree to those terms. But after the peace summit is over, after everything has been talked about and discussed and agreed, then we want you to come and sign on the dotted line. But you can't participate in any of the discussions. But we're neutral, says Switzerland. Absolutely. All right, so this is going to be a beautiful church if they ever finish it. I don't think they will. Zero progress in 1 year. Zero. So we'll go right there. We'll walk around and we'll wrap up the video. It is very windy. Very windy. My microphone is getting tested today. This new microphone is getting tested in a big way. Let's see if it passes the test. So I think we can, one sec. Yeah, I think we can segue into our clown world. Actually, our clown world has to do with Switzerland, because Switzerland won the Eurovision Song Contest yesterday. Hey, how about that? A reward for its neutrality, a reward for hosting the Peace Summit. Switzerland won the Eurovision Song Contest. That's right. And what a song it was. I don't know, should I congratulate Switzerland? or is this a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I don't know. I'll say congratulations, I guess. Congratulations, Switzerland, for winning the Eurovision Song Contest. You get to host Eurovision next year. Congratulations. Anyway, an interesting song. Very interesting performance. So the song that won the Eurovision Song Contest, Broke the Code, that's the name of the song, also broke the Eurovision trophy, as you can see here on the screen. So excited for winning the Eurovision that the trophy was smashed on the stage. Oh boy. So I think I'll end the video there. And let's walk around this way, and that'll be the video. The Duran.locals.com. Look at the waves. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfid, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, pick up some limited edition merch. Also go to the Reverse Gear shop, pick up a Reverse Gear hat. I will put the link in the description box below and as a pinned comment as well. And subscribe to this channel, like this video. Let's get to 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and let's get to 30,000 subscribers on Rumble. Let's get to 50,000 subscribers on Rumble. Why not? All right, everybody. That's the video. Take care.